So I wanted to bring this post and I wanted to speak and share my words and why I understand and see in front of me why Harry and Meghan are in stalemate, and we can all see it, but where did it all begin? And we pretty much all understand why that emotional attachment. Here's the thing, I haven't got a degree in social climate in understanding the rich poor divide, but what I do know is the hierarchy and lowerarchy courtesy of growing up in domestic abuse, in how that lowerarchy would feel, how they react to that, how that hierarchy will carry on no matter what, in how the elitism that spit out in COVID, and how the people all aligned with each other. We were clapping on doorsteps for the real heroes at bay. No longer were we looking to celebrity like Ellen DeGeneres sat on a sofa at a home with a swimming pool and moaning she was bored because there are people out here being monitored whilst going for a walk. You know, we have Martin Rashford feeding the kids because no longer do we want to look in your fridge because we've got no food in our own. And they stepped out with this big master plan to speak out. It's such a time where that time was gone, you know, in the entitlement that came with them as they felt it okay to sit on a sofa and moan to the world that they had been forced to stay in a free cottage on Kensington Ground when people were being made homeless. People were trying to afford their mortgages. It was done, it was gone, but they didn't read a room. They couldn't understand, and how could Harry ever understand when he's been around the most opulence? But here's the thing, and his family are wealthy, they're the royal family, but here's the thing, we had moments like this. You know, the Queen, she brought unity, she brought the people together. She understood whilst people were visiting their grands in care homes and sitting on the other side of a pane door. We watched the Queen at Philip's funeral, sat there alone in a pew, and we understood and could relate that could be my granny instead. And most of them grieving their grannies because their grannies were now dead. Like, this is the reality in how they stepped out, and it was the biggest story post-COVID as the people no longer look on or up because they were amongst their own, as Rishi Sunak and the government were Boris Johnson were partying with cheese and wine as we were following the rules to help another. They were stepping on another, you know, and to sit and watch Harry and Meghan in this, you know, on their private jet like this, the freedom flight, as they made their big attempt to find freedom for them in their elite opulence in a free mansion in LA, as someone's give it to them just because he's a prince. And it fell short. We lost any kinds of relation to what they were saying because the people were out and done. We went from clapping for the carers, clapping for the people, to no longer being able to feed them as they were going on strike, and Harry and Meghan are out here saying they had to fight. They had this battle while sat on their private jet, whilst having Oprah around for tea, to disgrace the monarchy because that was their plan, to bring their family down. But whilst the people were all aligned, whilst acknowledging the people, family values kicked in. We started to acknowledge, as we were separated from them, the true importance of what it is to be family, in how you would treat another and how desperately you wanted to see another. But again, the Queen was out here putting us all together, and dare would she be so gross to sit there and moan at the home she's in, because that's the difference between the royal family and him at this point, because the royal family understand their wealth, they understand their privilege, and they're humble enough to not rub it in our face, to sit on a sofa and preach to the world about saving grace and the people, and we're kind. And no, they show us with actions and behaviours. So at this point in the game, post everything we've seen in how he continues to roll out this elitism, in how most on the street would not get away with what he's done. It would not be able to sell, even though the majority have got a story to tell. He hangs off the coat strings, the apron strings of that royal family as he sits there and attacks them in this country, as the world has watched on. you know, and that's just my theory. It may not make sense to you, but that's how I see in reading the bigger picture in what once was a living room in my home, in how we had to understand to be safe, and how that grew with me into adult life, in how the power of the hierarchy, when they can understand the entitlement of the hierarchy, and when you come out and take advantage of that title bestowed, you belittle that title bestowed. So no, the people won't invest in you, they won't invest in Arrow, they won't invest in anything you do, because you're at stalemate. Because every time you step out, you speak and preach some more. We've never taken out any accountability for the entitlement we see before us, and that's why the people disengage and say, no, this is not okay. We watched your gran sit alone in that pew because she understood the people were doing it too, and you sit on your private jet and preach about freedom flight when no other person were doing that, because they were just trying to stay alive and survive. That's my opinion, that's my thoughts on the whole of the shenanigans that we see with Harry and Meghan, the elitism, the entitlement, the people all aligned in post-COVID in such a destructive and devastating time. They thought it was okay to step out to us to say it was poor me, for me and my dingy little free cottage in Kensington Grounds, when there were people homeless on the streets, you know? So again, it's just my theory, it's just my thoughts as they linger, as I create an analogy to try and explain to you how I see the world post domestic abuse, in how it used to leave me confused, but now I use that reading a room to help me make sense of this madness I see placed out in front of me.